Welcome from Guadalajara, Mexico to this episode of Crossing Borders with Nathan Lustig, where Nathan has conversations with entrepreneurs doing business across borders and the people who support them, with a focus on those that have some connection to Latin America. Nathan's guest today is Alexa Clark, associate at Magma Partners. We hope you enjoy this conversation with Alexa Clark.
Hey Alexa, welcome to the podcast. Thanks for being willing to do it.
No, thank you for the invite, Nate. Excited to do one after hearing so many.
So where are we in the world today?
We are in Guadalajara, Jalisco.
And so tell me a little bit about what you do in your day-to-day at Magma.
So on my day-to-day, I talk to many startups from Latin America. I also do some portfolio management in trying to help those companies, and also just like probably back office work into, administrative stuff we need to do for raising the next fund or closing the startups that we did commitments to. That's it, more or less.
So we've been working together a little over 2 years now, I think, maybe almost 2.5 years. And I'm glad we're finally getting a chance to do a podcast. Tell me a little bit about your background. How did you get into startups? And did you always know you wanted to be in technology, or is it something that just came up randomly?
Definitely not something I had planned to. I studied international relations as my major. As a good millennial, I always wanted to do something related to impact and something that could improve people's lives. I first thought it was going to be either, through diplomacy or public service. And I did get the chance to do internships in both. But I realized, I learned a lot and I met amazing people, but I realized those weren't the places or industries for me to develop or where I wanted to actually be. And I was lucky enough that a cousin of mine was launching an acceleration program in Guadalajara, and I knew nothing about startups. Well, maybe something out of classes about entrepreneurship in college, but that was basically it. But I was lucky enough for my cousin to be in this industry and taught me about it. And so I joined the acceleration program. I was lucky enough for him to trust me. At first, it was more of like an internship role. He needed some cheap labor, we joke. And so I joined, and after 2 months, it was very clear to me that this was it, right? Like, this was the place that I wanted to be in, and basically helping people building these solutions and platforms that could potentially improve improve the quality of living of millions of people in Mexico and Latin America.
So that was like 4 or 5 years ago?
I think it was more around 6.
6 years ago.
Yeah.
So walk me through kind of like the jumps on the journey from like, what were you doing when you first started 6 years ago? And like, how did you grow into where you are today?
Sure. So at the beginning, it was more of it was only 3 people at the beginning of that program. That plus our first startup in the program. And we had to wear many hats. At the beginning, it was more like office management, dealing with office management stuff. And also we had like a tech community where many of the deal flow like came from, and also like managing that community. So it was a bunch of stuff, and just like trying to help the startups with any like requirements or help they needed. They were very, very early. And after that, as the team grew, I became more involved in like deal flow and scouting of the startups, and that's basically where I realized like I had a path to follow more clearly in my career, and that's how I got to where I am now.
And then when you started with Magma, talk a little bit about what you were doing then compared to like what you do now.
Okay, so at the beginning, I was like the first filter for startups that applied to Magma, and my job initially was basically to review all of the startups that came through the inbound funnel, since we have a 24/7 application open for all the startups that want to apply for Magma funding. So it was reviewing those and answering to all of those, like, do we need to ask more questions about the startup, or do we do a call, or do we pass? And always trying to give them a reason if we were passing, why was that the reasoning behind it. So those were the main. That was the main task, I would say.
So basically, part of our philosophy is everybody starts there when they're on the investment team. I mean, I did that for 3.5 or 4 years, and part of the reason we do that is that it's the fastest way to level up and get a quick understanding of what's going on. And then, so you did that, and then what does your day-to-day look like today, or like what's different today compared to 2 years ago or 2.5 years ago?
My day-to-day is different now, as we now have 2 more analysts, and so I am involved in the inbound funnel, but like I'm not managing it. I try to help them out if there's questions. One of the main things now, I would say, is to try to scale the opportunities that we think need to get to the partners. And also, I've been lucky enough for you guys to trust me, and I've been able to lead my first deals as well at Magma. And the other thing is, after a couple of years seeing like the fundraising process for different startups, I get the chance to help the portfolio companies a bit more, at least in regards to fundraising strategies and introductions to other VCs, as an example. And also deal closing. I wasn't very involved in it at first, but I've been more involved as I've progressed.
I think in addition to that, 2 other things that you've helped a lot with is one, when we hire new analysts for the team, you're the first contact reviewing people and getting us to our finalists. So that's a huge help. And then also kind of like helping us put down more of the playbooks for us internally with for the team, and especially new people that are going to get on, and even just like how we help startups more. So you've become a really important key person on the team. And it's been awesome to watch you, develop from the bottom of the funnel to someone who's actually doing deals.
Thanks. No, it's been very, very exciting to do that. And yeah, I forgot that piece actually. But yeah, as Magma, as an organization grows also, I've also, and well, the rest of the team too, but we've had to develop like playbooks, like to scale to as an organization, and playbooks in regards to like deal closing and onboarding the new startups, on how to get the most out of working with us.
And talk a little bit about when you're either meeting a startup for the first time or getting to know them, like what are some do's and don'ts, or what are you looking for that says, wow, this is exciting, maybe I want to invest in this one, or maybe we should spend more time on it, or starts to get you to say, no, maybe we shouldn't, maybe this is not ready for us, or yeah,
Sure.
what are you looking for?
So some of the do's I would say are, well, I try to look for what's the skin in the game of this team. Like, why do they want to solve this? Why are they gonna be trying to solve this problem for the next 5 to 10 years? That's one of the main things I would say. So trying to, some of the do's on that regard would be to get your storytelling on why, like the reasoning behind it. Some don'ts, I would say, is trying to appear like very sophisticated, like in regards to the pitch. Like, I think simple is better rather than using a lot of jargon. So trying to keep it simple. And another thing is, especially if it's very early, like, what's the thesis of this team regarding this particular problem and solution. So maybe I don't think that the solution will look the same as when they started. So trying to get a grip more on how they think about it, and I think that's also a good way to approach it.
Yeah, having that first conversation where it's more of a conversation and less, them talking at you, I think is really important and good advice. The other one that I see sometimes, especially when I get into a call, like if it's one where you're not sure you want to do right away, but you do like, and you're bringing it to either me or to Pedro to review, where they're basically like only talking to me instead of talking to you, even though you're the champion for the deal. Like, that's a big mistake that founders do. Like, talk a little bit about some other things like that are like don'ts that they shouldn't be doing or are going to be seen as negative signals for us in the team.
Maybe not in regards to the pitch, but another thing I see a lot and I have seen a lot since I started is startups or teams trying to fit in a particular tech solution or business model and like being in love with it rather than a problem, and trying to fit that tech or that solution into something. I think that's a big mistake too. But going back to the pitching and meetings itself, another thing we see a lot is not being direct, like giving 5-minute answers. And sometimes we see a lot people trying to like going around a lot and not giving the answer itself. So at the end we're like, well, I asked what's the burn rate maybe, but I didn't get what's the burn rate itself, but a story on why maybe it's not particularly good at this time.
Yeah, when we ask a direct question, the best answer is just, what's your burn rate? It's 10,000 a month, it's 50,000 a month, it's 100,000 a month. And then if we need to have some color, we might ask, or if you want to give a little color,
we'll double click.
Yeah, we'll double click on it, but don't go around in circles trying to avoid it. And I think, like, for me, one of the most frustrating things, and I think probably for you as well, is like, if we're in a call and we've asked the same question like 3 different ways and they're still not giving it to us, that's a pretty big red flag. And not because they're necessarily like lying or trying to hide something, but because they're either unwilling or unable to be direct. We, especially at pre-seed and seed, we don't expect like companies to be ready. Like they're still really, really early. So just really understanding where you are today is really important.
Agree. And in regards to the other thing you have mentioned about us, like the analysts or principals or associates being like champions for the deals, that's also true. Luckily, I don't think I've come across many founders that don't want to, to talk to me, but I think founders should also see it as a good way to get into the door if they haven't been able to reach one of the partners. We can definitely vouch for them, and I've done it in the past. I can make sure that we do so. Like,
so what are you most excited about in Latin America right now in tech? What's like, could be specifics, it could be overarching, bigger trends, just like what's interesting for you? Like what gets you excited when you're looking at new companies or working with the portfolio?
sure. So one of the in regards to industries, I would say definitely insurtech. I think most people don't realize how impactful it can be for a person to have insurance, either health insurance or car insurance. I don't know, as an example, maybe having a car is like it's an important piece of your assets, right? And having that damage or loss because you had an accident, like, can maybe take you to poverty. So I think like we haven't been taught well enough like the importance around it, and also it's not accessible, right? So insurtech is it's definitely one of the industries that I'm most excited about, and also like B2C and B2B.
Are there any other either big trends or industries that you're excited about in the region?
Probably vertical marketplaces, especially for like SMEs and the long tail of like businesses. For example, Círculo de Belleza, which helps mom and pop beauty salons get their supplies in a more efficient and streamlined way. So those sort of companies as well.
And talk a little bit about what it's like evaluating startups, like for a job. As we continue to build the team and more people apply for positions on the investment team, one, like, what do we look for? Because a lot of times you're going to be the first person evaluating and interviewing people. So what are we looking for? And then what's it like during the day-to-day for someone on the investment team?
Sure. So one of the main things I would say is we look for someone that's proactive. I think that isn't afraid to take risk and maybe push back on me or the partners on why we are passing or investing on certain startups. So that would be one of the main skills, I would say. And also somebody that maybe doesn't have that many biases yet, so that they can learn fast. Those would be like two of the skills, I would say. And also somebody that doesn't mind like doing the taking care of the inbound funnel first, because VC is an industry with a lot of no's, and especially on the side of the investors, there's only a few yes, right? So somebody that is patient, I would say, on that regard.
Yeah, I think that's a really underrated portion of being on the investment team. In Latin America, people generally are not as comfortable saying no or struggle to say no. And VC is a no business, where I think the last time we did our stats, it's under 1 or 1.5% of companies that we actually evaluate, we end up investing in. So you're saying no, let's say 99 times out of 100, and you have to be comfortable with that. And if you're not, get comfortable with it pretty fast, Doesn't mean we think that the no's are bad people or they're stupid or anything like that. It's just, it's not the right fit for us or at the right time. And we're also wrong a lot. There's plenty of really good companies that we've passed on or haven't moved fast on. So a no from us, doesn't really mean much because we've been wrong plenty. So yeah, someone has to get used to saying no, and then saying no to other people on the team also, since we're remote work. It's maybe harder or may seem harder when we debate startups being willing to say like, no, I don't think this is a good one to anyone on the team, or say, I really do think this is a good one when someone else is saying no. So yeah, I think those are really good answers.
And just asking too, why?
Yeah, asking why, understanding why. So if you could go back to when you were first starting with the accelerator 6 years ago, knowing everything you know today, what advice would you give yourself?
There's a couple. I would say be patient with like the industry itself. Like you need in BC, I think you need a lot of patience, and also with myself. Another big one would be to trust my gut a lot more, because I don't know, I think I've seen I've been at times in which I hadn't been confident enough to like speak up or raise a certain point, and eventually I realized it did needed to be erased. So trusting my gut a lot more would be another one. And also, I think the industry or startups revolve a lot. Well, FOMO is like really big in this industry, I would say, and not only for which startup to work with, but I think also as an employee at a fund, or as a founder seeing certain trend, like trying not to be too moved by the FOMO, like, oh well, I need to embed fintech, sorry, because that's what everybody's doing. Like, no, I need to do this certain thing because that's what needs to be done in my business. And doing things for yourself and the business rather for what everybody else thinks you should be doing.
What's some of your favorite things about working in startups or working in Magma?
From working with Magma, the team, like I think I landed in a team where I feel very comfortable at. Well, also at the accelerator, but I think I've been very lucky around that, because I don't know, I see friends or coworkers that don't really get along with their colleagues. So I think the team is one of my favorite things. And in working with startups, I would say, well, I get to talk with interesting people all the time and learn about new industries. And another thing would be, from a very selfish point of view, is I think working with founders and startups make me very hopeful about the future, and about the future particularly in Latin America. There's so many tragedies in Latin America and in Mexico. I don't know, violence and corruption. And from a very selfish point of view, like working with startups like make me very hopeful about this region.
Yeah, no, it is, especially for people that maybe are not from LatAm, that they only see the Narcos version of Netflix of LatAm, or the worst stuff that happens on the news, but they don't see all the good stuff that's happening. It is a nice thing and really good thing to be a part of. Do you have any books, blogs, or podcasts you like, whether it's about startups or just life in general?
Yeah, I'm gonna go out of script and not mention books about startups.
Good, good. That's more interesting.
One of the books that has more impacted me, I would say, is A Room of One's Own from Virginia Woolf. It's very short, but as a woman, it really impacted me, and like seeing Virginia Woolf write this in like another century, I don't know, it's very impactful, and it's one of my favorite books ever, and I think everybody, including men, should read it. And I really like reading like historical novels, like fiction, but mixed with a bit of history. Sorry, and I really, one of the ones I've enjoyed the most in the past couple of years has been a gentleman in Moscow. It's a really good one, and it has an amazing central character, and it also takes you back to like the Russian Revolution and like what happened afterwards. Like it's deeply entangled, so I really recommend those two ones. Sorry, I didn't mention any about startups.
No,
or VCs.
that's much more interesting, and I think if you look at some of the reading lists of people that have been on the podcast, some of the best ones have nothing to do with startups. So no, that's awesome. Well, Alexa, thanks for taking the time to do it. It's been great to talk more in person, and it's been great working with you for the last couple of years, and hopefully we keep doing it a lot more.
No, thank you. Likewise, Nate. Really appreciate it.